Captain Jinwoo Kim had been having a pretty good morning until the massive alien ship appeared out of nowhere. He'd been sipping his third cup of coffee while reviewing patrol reports when the proximity alarm started screaming across the bridge of the UES Seoul. Through the main viewport, what looked like a floating city made of dark metal and glowing purple lights now blocked their path through the Kepler sector. "Well, that's new," Jinwoo muttered, setting down his coffee mug with the faded Earth Defense Force logo. Around him, the bridge crew moved with practiced calm, their fingers dancing over holographic displays as they ran diagnostics on their 3 patrol vessels. The alien ship was enormous. Jinwoo had seen plenty of human dreadnoughts during his 15 years in the service, but this thing made even the biggest Earth vessels look like fishing boats. Massive weapon turrets jutted from its hull like the spines of some deep-sea creature. Gan's strange symbols glowed along its sides in patterns that hurt to look at too long. "Captain, sensors are picking up energy signatures I've never seen before," called out Tactical Officer Ji-Hyun-nam from her station. Her usually steady voice carried a hint of excitement rather than fear. "Whatever powers that thing, it's not fusion or antimatter." "Size estimate?" Jinwoo asked, though he could already guess the answer wouldn't be good. "Approximately 8 kilometers long, 3 kilometers wide," Ji-Hye replied, her eyebrows rising. "Mass readings are off the charts." Engineer Min-Ho Lee whistled low from his position near the rear of the bridge. "That's one hell of a space yacht. Think they're compensating for something?" A few crew members chuckled, but Jinwoo noticed how they all kept working, running system checks and scanning for more threats. Good. His people were experienced Border Patrol veterans, not easily rattled rookies. "Incoming transmission, Captain," reported Communications Officer So-Young Park, her fingers flying over the communication array. "It's coming through on multiple frequencies, including some we don't normally monitor. Audio and visual," Jinwoo ordered, straightening in his command chair. The main view screen flickered to life, and suddenly they were staring at something that definitely wasn't human. The alien's face filled the screen, all sharp angles and scales that shifted color in the light. Golden eyes with vertical pupils glared at them from beneath a ridge of bony protrusions. Elaborate armor covered what they could see of its body, decorated with jewels and metals that seemed to move on their own. "Primitive species," the creature boomed, its voice carrying harmonics that made the bridge speakers crackle. "I am Admiral Korath of the Valerian Empire. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation." The bridge fell silent for a moment. Jinwoo could hear the quiet hum of the ship's systems and the soft beeping of various monitors. He scratched his chin thoughtfully, the way he always did when trying to solve a particularly tricky problem. "Are you folks having engine trouble?" he asked in the same tone he might use to offer directions to a lost tourist. "We've got some spare parts if you need them. Nothing fancy, but our fusion cores are pretty reliable." The alien's golden eyes widened so far that Jinwoo wondered if they might pop out of its head entirely. Behind him, Min-Ho Lee made a sound. That was half cough, half laugh, quickly covered by a sudden interest in his engineering console. "Engine trouble?" Admiral Korath repeated, the translator struggling with the concept. "You offer assistance?" "Sure," Jinwoo shrugged. "It's what we do out here. Border patrol, emergency response, helping stranded ships. Pretty standard stuff." He gestured casually at the massive alien vessel. "That's quite a ship you've got there, by the way. Custom build?" So-Young was biting her lip so hard to keep from laughing that Jinwoo worried she might draw blood. At the navigation station, pilot Woo-Jin Choi had turned his chair around to get a better look at the screen, his eyes wide with the kind of fascination usually reserved for rare wildlife documentaries. Admiral Korath seemed to be having some kind of internal struggle. His scales rippled through several different colors before settling on an angry red. "This is no jest, human. Submit to Imperial authority." Imperial authority. Jinwoo's grin was the same one he'd worn during his academy days, when professors asked particularly ridiculous questions. "Sir, this is a free shipping lane. You might want to check your navigation charts. We've got updated star maps if yours are out of date." The alien admiral's mouth opened and closed several times, revealing rows of very sharp teeth. "Navigation charts? Yeah, this whole sector's been open trade space for about 50 years now," Jinwoo explained patiently. "No territorial Claims no restricted zones. Well, except for the asteroid mining operations near Kepler 442, but those are clearly marked. Minho finally lost the battle with his laughter, letting out a snort that echoed across the bridge. Captain, should I send them our tourist information? Pack it. It's got all the local regulations and safety guidelines. The look on Admiral Korath's face suggested he was beginning to suspect that this first contact wasn't going according to whatever plan he'd had in mind. Admiral Korath stared at the communication screen for a full 30 seconds after Captain Jinwoo had offered him tourist information. His scales shifted through several shades of purple before settling on a deep, angry crimson. In his 300 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to Imperial authority with helpful suggestions about navigation charts. Close communications, he growled to his bridge crew. The Valerian command center was a marvel of alien engineering, with curved walls that pulsed with bioluminescent displays and control surfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Dozens of his officers worked at stations that seemed to grow from the ship's living hull, their scaled hands moving over controls that shifted shape based on need. "Admiral," his tactical officer hissed through pointed teeth, "perhaps these humans simply don't understand the gravity of their situation." Korath's laugh was like breaking glass. "Then we shall educate them." He activated the ship's long-range communicator, sending out a priority signal that would reach every Valerian vessel within a dozen light-years. "All Imperial forces, converge on my location immediately. Full battle formation." The response was swift. Within 2 hours, space around, the small human patrol began to ripple and tear as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace. Each arrival was announced by a flash of purple light and the distinctive whine of Valerian jump drives cooling down. First came the heavy cruisers, their wedge-shaped hulls bristling with energy cannons and missile tubes. Then the destroyers, sleek and fast, designed to hunt down fleeing enemies. Finally, the massive battleships emerged, each one a fortress in space, carrying enough firepower to crack a moon. 200 ships in total, arranged in perfect formation around the 3 tiny human vessels. The smallest Valerian cruiser was 10 times larger than the biggest human patrol ship. The sight should have been overwhelming, terrifying, absolutely devastating to any rational species. On the bridge of the UES Seoul, pilot Woo Jin Choi was holding up his personal tablet, trying to get all the alien ships in one shot. "Captain, this is definitely going straight to Spacebook," he said, adjusting the angle. "My sister works at the Seoul Space Museum. She's never going to believe this without pictures." "Make sure you get the big one in the center," added Tactical Officer Ji Hyun-nam, pointing at Korath's flagship with genuine appreciation. "That paint job is actually pretty impressive. Look how the purple shifts to gold along the hull. Must be some kind of adaptive camouflage system." Captain Jinwoo leaned back in his command chair, hands behind his head, as he studied the alien fleet through the main viewport. "I've got to admit they know how to make an entrance very dramatic." Communications Officer So-young Park was monitoring the chatter between the 3 human ships. "Captain, I'm picking up internal communications from the Busan and Incheon. The crews are calling this the galaxy's most expensive photo opportunity." Indeed, across all 3 human vessels, crew members had abandoned their posts to press against viewports, personal devices in hand. The ship's internal communication system buzzed with excitement as photos and videos were shared instantly across the small fleet's network. "Look at the weapon arrays on that destroyer," someone called out from the UES Incheon. "They're actually pretty elegant. Whoever designed these things has a real eye for aesthetics." "The energy signatures are incredible," added a voice from the UES Busan. "These power readings are off the charts. I'm getting radiation patterns I've never seen before." Engineer Minho Lee was practically bouncing with excitement at his console. "Captain, the engineering data I'm collecting here is worth its weight in platinum. The drive systems alone are going to revolutionize our understanding of hyperspace mechanics." Admiral Korath's voice suddenly boomed across all frequencies, transmitted simultaneously to every human ship. "Now do you comprehend your situation, primitive humans? 200 of the Valerian Empire's finest warships surround you. Each vessel carries enough firepower to reduce your pathetic craft to space dust. Surrender now, or face the consequences." "Of your arrogance?" The bridge of the UES Seoul fell silent for about 3 seconds. Then Wu Jin started giggling. "Did he just call us pathetic?" Jahye asked, looking genuinely puzzled. "I mean, we're just border patrol. We never claimed to be anything special." 200 ships, though, So-young mused. "That's either really good planning or massive overkill for 3 patrol boats." Minho was scrolling through the tactical data streaming across his screens. "Captain, I'm reading enough combined firepower out there to sterilize a small planet. Either they really don't like us, or they have some serious insecurity issues." "Maybe it's their first time meeting humans," Wu Jin suggested, still taking pictures. "You know how some people overcompensate when they're nervous about making a good first impression? The casual analysis of their desperate situation seemed to be contagious. Across the 3 ships, human voices filled the communication channels with observations that treated the overwhelming alien fleet like an interesting museum exhibit, rather than a mortal threat. "The formation patterns are actually quite sophisticated," noted someone from the navigation team. "Classical diamond formation with overlapping fields of fire, very textbook." "Anyone else notice how they're trying to block all our escape routes?" asked a tactical officer from the Busan. "It's almost like they expect us to run away screaming." Captain Jinwoo listened to his crew's commentary with growing amusement. These were experienced space hands, veterans of asteroid mining conflicts and pirate encounters. They'd seen enough real danger to recognize theater when they saw it, Admiral. Korath was probably expecting panic, surrender, or at least some acknowledgement of the overwhelming odds. Instead, he was getting what sounded like a very polite critique of Imperial naval tactics. Admiral Korath had reached the end of his considerable patience. The humans continued their incomprehensible chatter about paint jobs and formation tactics, as if his entire battle fleet was some kind of traveling circus. His tactical officer looked at him expectantly, waiting for orders that would finally bring these primitive creatures to their senses. "Fire warning shots," Korath commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries of conquest. "Close range. Make them understand what they face." The order rippled through the Valyrian fleet instantly. Weapon systems that had been charging for the past hour finally released their stored energy. Brilliant purple beams of coherent plasma lanced across space, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a small asteroid. The energy bolts streaked just meters in front of the 3 human ships, close enough that their hulls glowed briefly from the radiant heat. The warning shots lit up the darkness of space like artificial lightning, creating a dazzling display of pure energy that painted the hulls of both human and alien vessels in shifting shades of violet and gold. The plasma beams maintained their coherence for several seconds before finally dissipating, leaving glowing trails of ionized particles that sparkled like cosmic fireworks. Admiral Korath leaned forward in his command throne, waiting for the inevitable response. In his long experience, this was the moment when lesser species finally grasped their situation. The screaming usually started first, followed by desperate pleas for mercy and chaotic attempts to flee. Instead, the bridge of the UES Seoul erupted in delighted laughter. "Oh, that's beautiful," Captain Jinwoo applauded, actually clapping his hands together like he was watching a performance. "The light show's incredible. Look at those particle trails. So-young, are you getting this recorded?" Communications Officer. So-young Park was wiping tears of mirth from her eyes as she worked her console. "Already uploaded to the ship's social feed, Captain. The real-time viewer count is going crazy. We've got people watching from Earth to the Mars colonies. The energy discharge patterns are fascinating," added engineer Min-Ho Lee, his professional excitement overriding any concern about being shot at. "I'm reading plasma temperatures over 50,000 degrees. The magnetic containment systems must be incredibly sophisticated to maintain beam coherence at that range." Pilot Woojin Choi had pressed his face against the viewport, tablet still in hand. "Did you see how the beams curved slightly at the end? There must be some kind of gravitational lensing effect. This is going to revolutionize plasma physics textbooks." Tactical Officer Ji Ye-nam was analyzing the energy readings with the enthusiasm of a child opening birthday presents. "Captain, the power output calculations are incredible. Each shot used more energy than our entire ship generates in a week. but they managed to keep it focused across several thousand kilometers of space. The internal communication system crackled with excited voices from all three human ships. Crew members who had been taking pictures were now recording videos, providing running commentary, like they were documenting some rare natural phenomenon. "The color spectrum is absolutely gorgeous," someone called out from the UES Busan. "The way it shifts from deep purple to gold at the edges, it's like Aurora Borealis but in space." "I'm picking up harmonics in the electromagnetic spectrum," added a voice from the UES Incheon. "The energy signatures are creating actual music. These aliens are shooting musical laser beams." Captain Jinwoo grinned at his communications officer. "So Young, should I start the music playlist?" "Absolutely, Captain," she replied, her fingers already dancing over the audio controls. "Let's give our new friends a proper welcome." "What do you think? Classic Earth rock to start?" "Perfect choice, sir." Within seconds, the opening guitar riff of "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen began broadcasting across all frequencies. The iconic melody filled the space between the two fleets, transmitted with enough power to reach every ship in the area. "Freddy." Mercury's voice followed, clear and strong, turning the tense standoff into something that felt more like a party. The UES Busan's crew, not to be outdone, quickly joined in with their own contribution. Electronic dance music pulsed out from their communications array, the heavy bass notes creating a rhythm that seemed to make the stars themselves dance. The synthesized beats mixed with Queen's rock anthem, creating an impromptu remix that would have made nightclub DJs proud. Not to be left out, the UES Incheon added their own musical flavor. Traditional Korean folk songs, remixed with heavy bass and electronic elements, joined the growing concert. The haunting melodies of ancient Korea blended with modern beats, creating something entirely new and utterly human. Soon space itself seemed to pulse with music. The three human ships had become cosmic DJs, broadcasting humanity's greatest hits to an audience of very confused aliens. Crew members on all three vessels began singing along, their voices joining the broadcast in a spontaneous choir that spanned the void between stars. "This is absolutely incredible," laughed Minho, conducting an imaginary orchestra from his engineering station. "We're throwing the galaxy's first interstellar concert." Admiral Korath stared at his view screen in complete bewilderment. His translator was working overtime, trying to make sense of the human responses, but kept providing readings that seemed impossible. The humans were experiencing elevated heart rates and increased brain activity, but instead of indicating fear or stress, all biological markers suggested they were having fun. "Admiral," his tactical officer whispered, "they appear to be celebrating." "Impossible," Korath growled, but even as he spoke, he could see human crew members dancing at their stations, their movements visible through the viewports of their tiny ships. The warning shots that should have brought terror had instead triggered what appeared to be the most joyful response to military intimidation in galactic history. The humans had turned his show of force into entertainment, his weapons display into art, and his battle fleet into an unwitting dance partner. For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, Admiral Korath found himself completely at a loss for what to do next. The music had been playing for nearly 10 minutes, when Admiral Korath finally reached his breaking point. His scales had cycled through every color in the Valerian emotional spectrum twice, and his bridge crew was starting to look at him with expressions that bordered on concern. Never in the recorded history of the Empire had a show of force been met with what appeared to be a spontaneous dance party. "Cut the transmission," he ordered sharply. The music stopped abruptly, leaving only the hum of ship systems and the distant sound of humans still singing on their internal channels. Open communications, direct line to their captain only. The view screen flickered, and Captain Jinwoo's smiling face appeared, still slightly flushed from laughter. Behind him, his crew continued their work, though Admiral Korath could see several of them still moving to unheard rhythms. "Why do you not fear us?" Korath demanded, his voice cracking with 3 hours of accumulated frustration. 200 warships surround you. We have shown you the power of the Valerian Empire. Any rational species would be begging for mercy by now. Captain Jinwoo's laughter died down to a warm chuckle, the kind a patient teacher might use with a confused student. Fear you? Admiral, with all due respect, you're talking to a species that's been perfecting warfare for thousands of years. We've fought with sticks, swords, guns, tanks, aircraft, and nuclear weapons. We've had 2 world wars, countless regional conflicts, and we even figured out how to weaponize space debris. He gestured casually at his small fleet, as if discussing the weather. These aren't even military ships, they're border patrol, light security for this quiet sector. Engineer Minho Lee looked up from his console with a helpful smile. Our actual military considers this area vacation territory. Most of our real warships are stationed in the inner systems where the action is. Admiral Korath felt something cold settle in his stomach. Action? Oh, you know, Minho continued conversationally. Pirate fleets, rogue AI swarms, the occasional corporate war. Nothing too exciting out here on the rim. Captain Jinwoo's expression grew more serious as he leaned forward in his command chair. Admiral, let me show you something. So-young, bring up the historical archives. Start with the basics. Communications Officer So-young Park's fingers danced over her console, and suddenly the view screen split. On one side, Admiral Korath could still see the human captain. On the other, images began to flicker past in rapid succession. This is from our early history, Jinwoo explained, as grainy footage showed primitive humans wielding crude weapons. Stone Age warfare. We started small, but we learned fast. The images shifted to show armies of armored soldiers clashing with swords and spears, then evolved to show massive formations of troops with early firearms. Medieval period, then the age of gunpowder. We got very good at killing each other. Efficiently. Admiral Korath watched in growing unease as the footage showed increasingly sophisticated weapons, artillery bombardments that turned entire landscapes into moonscapes, aircraft raining destruction from above, naval battles where massive steel ships exchanged salvos that could be heard for hundreds of kilometers. The First Global War, Jinwoo continued, his voice taking on a more somber tone. 20 million dead. We thought we'd learned our lesson. The images shifted to show even more devastating conflicts. Cities in ruins, massive tank battles stretching across continents, aircraft carriers the size of floating cities. The Second Global War. 60 million dead this time. We definitely hadn't learned our lesson. Tactical Officer Ji-hye Nam added quietly. That's when we developed nuclear weapons. We actually used them in combat, twice. The footage showed the distinctive mushroom clouds rising over devastated cities, and Admiral Korath felt his breath catch. His own species had developed similar weapons, but the idea of actually using them against civilian populations was almost unthinkable. After that, we got into space, Jinwoo continued. You'd think that would calm us down, but no. We fought. Wars in zero gravity, weaponized asteroids, and figured out how to turn space stations into kinetic bombardment platforms. The historical record showed sleek human warships engaged in 3-dimensional battles among the stars, their weapons turning enemy vessels into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. It showed massive orbital platforms launching projectiles that struck planetary surfaces with the force of small meteors. The Martian Independence War lasted 3 years, Minho added conversationally. Fascinating conflict from an engineering perspective. Both sides tried to collapse each other's orbital habitats. Very educational. The Belt Pirate Wars were even more interesting, Ji-hye noted. Fighting in asteroid fields while both sides are trying to mine them for resources. You learn to be creative with limited ammunition. Admiral Korath realized that his bridge crew had stopped working entirely. Every Valyrian officer was staring at the human historical footage with expressions of growing horror. These weren't. The records of a primitive species stumbling through occasional conflicts. This was the documentation of a race that had spent its entire existence perfecting the art of war. We laugh because we've seen real warfare, Admiral, Captain Jinwoo concluded, his tone gentle but firm. What you're showing us? 200 ships in perfect formation, firing warning shots to establish dominance? This is just Tuesday. The footage continued rolling, showing human military exercises where entire fleets maneuvered in complex patterns, their weapons creating light shows that made the Valyrian warning shots look like party sparklers. Massive space fortresses that dwarfed even Admiral Korath's flagship. Soldiers in powered armor that moved with inhuman speed and precision. This is current Earth Defense Force standard equipment, So-Young mentioned, highlighting a formation of human dreadnoughts that seem to stretch beyond the horizon. Basic peacekeeping patrol. The real military hardware is classified above our security level. The Valerian bridge crew fell silent as the implications sank in. These three small ships, these laughing humans who treated galactic conquest as entertainment, represented not a primitive species encountering superior technology, but experienced veterans taking a break from conflicts that made imperial warfare. Looked like children playing with toys. Admiral Korath stared at the screen, watching footage of human ships that moved like living things, weapons that bent space itself, and soldiers who fought with the casual efficiency of those who had been born into war. For the first time in his long military career, he was beginning to understand what fear actually felt like. The silence on Admiral Korath's bridge stretched for nearly a full minute as the implications of the human historical footage sank in. His tactical officer was staring at readouts that showed human weapons capable of cracking moons, while his communications specialist was trying to process casualty figures from conflicts that made the bloodiest Valerian campaigns look like minor skirmishes. Then the long-range sensors started screaming. "Admiral!" His sensor operator called out, his voice cracking with alarm. "Massive hyperspace distortion detected. Something big is coming out of jump space." The view screen automatically shifted to show the readings, and Admiral Korath felt his blood turn cold. The energy signature was unlike anything in Valerian databases, but the size readings were impossible to ignore. Whatever was approaching was larger than his flagship, and moving with a precision that spoke of technology far beyond what the Empire had encountered. Space twisted and folded in on itself, reality bending in ways that made Korath's eyes water to watch. Then, with a flash of brilliant blue light that briefly outshone the nearby star, a single human warship dropped out of hyperspace. The UES Sejong was beautiful in the way that apex predators are beautiful. Its hull was matte black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, broken only by lines of blue energy that pulsed along its length, like veins carrying liquid lightning. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of Admiral Korath's flagship, but it moved with a grace that defied physics. Most terrifying of all were the weapons. Where Valerian ships mounted their armaments on obvious turrets and pylons, the human dreadnought's weapons seemed to be built into the very structure of the ship. Energy conduits ran along its hull like circuitry, and what appeared to be launch tubes were integrated so seamlessly that the entire vessel looked like a single, perfectly designed instrument of war. "That's our actual response team, Captain," Jinwoo mentioned casually, as if discussing the weather. "Probably wondering why we're taking so long to file our patrol report." Admiral Korath stared at the newcomer, his earlier confidence evaporating like mist in a solar wind. The human warship made his massive flagship seem primitive by comparison, like comparing a stone axe to a plasma rifle. The energy readings alone were off every chart the Valerian Empire had ever created. "Captain Kim," a new voice appeared on the communication channel, crisp and professional. "This is Admiral Hee-Sung-Yu aboard the UES Sejong. We received your routine patrol ping about 3 hours late and came to check on your status. Everything all right out here?" "All good, Admiral," Jinwoo replied with a cheerful wave. "Just making some new friends. Meet Admiral Korath of the Valerian Empire. They've got some really impressive ships." Through the view screen, Admiral Korath could see a woman in a crisp blue uniform appearing on what was presumably the Sejong's bridge. Her expression was polite but alert, the look of someone accustomed to command and ready for trouble. "Pleased to meet you, Admiral Korath," she said with a formal nod. "I hope our patrol crews haven't been causing any problems." "Problems?" Korath managed to croak, his voice barely functioning. "Well, they do tend to be a bit casual about first contact protocols," Admiral Yu continued, with what might have been the hint of a smile. "Captain Kim's team specializes in border patrol and emergency response. They're good at improvising." Behind her, Korath could see the Sejong's bridge crew working with quiet efficiency. The technology visible in the background made Valerian systems look like museum pieces. Holographic displays showed tactical information in real time, and what appeared to be artificial intelligence systems were processing data faster than any biological crew could manage. "Admiral," Captain Jinwoo said, his tone shifting to something warmer and more diplomatic, "I think we got off on the wrong foot. Here? How about we start over? Earth would be happy to open diplomatic relations with the Valerian Empire. We could show you some real hospitality." "Diplomatic relations," Korath repeated, still trying to process the reality of his situation. "Sure," Jinwoo smiled. "We're always interested in meeting new neighbors. The galaxy's a big place. Plenty of room for everyone. Admiral Yu, what do you think? Could we arrange a proper first contact meeting?" "I don't see why not," Admiral Yu replied thoughtfully. "Though we'll need to follow established protocols. I'll contact Earth Command and see about setting up a diplomatic mission." Engineer Minho Lee looked up from his console with genuine enthusiasm. "Admiral Korath, you should really come see Earth sometime. We've got some incredible museums and the food is amazing. Korean barbecue is practically a religious experience. The cherry blossoms are beautiful this time of year too," added Soyoung Park. "Very peaceful. You'd probably enjoy the contrast." After all this military posturing, Admiral Korath found himself looking at his own fleet through new eyes. 200 ships that had seemed overwhelmingly powerful an hour ago now looked almost quaint compared to the single human dreadnought floating serenely among them. The Sejong wasn't even showing signs of alert status. Its weapons remained powered down, and its crew appeared to be treating this as a routine diplomatic encounter. "You're not concerned about our numbers?" he asked hesitantly. "Why would we be?" Admiral Yu replied with genuine puzzlement. "You haven't shown any hostile intent. Captain Kim's report indicates you were just establishing contact and demonstrating your capabilities. Standard first contact behavior, really. Besides," Pilot Woo Jin Choi called out cheerfully, "your ships are actually really beautiful. The engineering is fascinating. We'd love to learn more about your propulsion systems." As the conversation continued, Admiral Korath began to understand something profound. The humans weren't mocking the Valerian Empire or dismissing their power. They were treating them as equals, potential friends, interesting neighbors worth getting to know. The laughter hadn't been mockery, but genuine amusement at finding people who thought 3 patrol boats represented a serious threat. "Admiral," his own tactical officer whispered, "our weapons are still powered and aimed at them." Korath looked at his displays, then at the human ships floating peacefully in space, their crews chatting about tourism and cultural exchange while surrounded by enough firepower to level a continent. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered quietly. "Assume peaceful formation." As the standoff dissolved into nervous laughter and tentative communications protocols, Korath realized that humanity's amusement hadn't been mockery. It had been the genuine reaction of a people who had seen so much conflict that 3 patrol boats facing an entire fleet was simply amusing. The galaxy, he reflected, as he watched human and Valerian crews beginning to exchange technical data and cultural information, had just become a far more interesting and dangerous place. But perhaps with careful diplomacy and genuine respect, it could also become a much more wonderful one. The first interstellar friendship was about to begin, born from laughter in the darkness between stars. The end.